Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Hey, today I've got, if you folks that enjoy the machining content, this is your day. That's pretty much all we're doing. My quest for an axle for this bike, come to find out the Suzuki wheels used a 14 millimeter ID on their bearings and Yamaha is using a 16. So actually the PE uses a 16, and I had a PE axle and it fits and works just fine except for the left side of the swing arm adjuster, and that I just bored out to the 16 millimeter. That wasn't a problem. But the axle itself, I got one for an RM 250, actually the same one I got the swing arm off of, and they use 14 millimeter bearings. So I didn't want to go there and try to find bearings that would fit and so on and so forth. So anyway, the axle that I got, it was trash. It had been ground on and filed on, and I didn't check it, but it was probably bent too. So I elected to make a new axle. The PE axle that I got is too short. You can get about one thread of the nut on it. So we're gonna make one, and it's pretty involved. I've got a good solid day in this by the time it's done, and I had a lot of issues that I had to overcome with the lathe, trying to get my tailstock and everything in a line. So because you're turning a pretty long piece, and it's got you may be off. In this case, I was off about 1/1000 from one end to the other. That's not acceptable. So I worked on that, and I was able to get it down to about 1/2 which I thought that was okay. But anyhow, there's just follow along. You're going to see everything that pretty much went into it. A few things, were done off camera, but you'll get the gist of it. So let's get on down here and get on the lathe and get to making an axle. Okay, I'm making a new rear axle here. It seems that they are hard to find in good shape and expensive if you do find one. No longer available from Suzuki. I ordered one. I got it for a very cheap price, like $7.50 and maybe $15 shipping, and got it in, and it was just trash. Let me grab that thing and show it. Okay, you can see here where it's been, they've ground on it with a grinder and filed on it. I mean, it is in rough shape. And really it's, I need this size on both ends, so this wouldn't have really worked for me anyway. So I just decided to go ahead and make one. And it's, I've got to put the threads on this end here. And instead of cutting that down from a piece of 1 1/4 inch, I'm cutting it off from a piece of 3/4. And what I'll do is I'll make this piece and weld it onto the other end instead of wasting all that material. So this is just going to take a little while. I don't think you've probably seen me do this. I'm set up between centers. I've got a dog down here on a faceplate, and that gets me the best possible well, I guess the variance. So if when you're turning something long like this, you do have some differences somewhere in your system, in the lathe, and you can change quite a bit. I'm actually doing pretty good here. I'm within a thou from one end to the other. So I'm pretty happy with that, but it took regrinding my dead center in order to do it. And I had to rework my dog a little bit in order to get it to hook up. But other than that, we'll just see how it goes here. Okay, we're down to probably 2 cuts left. I've got this one here I'm taking 4/1000 off, and I'll probably run another one right at 4, and that should put us right about there, and I can take care of any discrepancies with a file and sandpaper probably. But this has got to go through the bearing, so I'll be able to test it. And then once I get this down to where the bearing will slide all the way up, then I'll take it out of here and put it back in probably a collet, and then we'll put the threads on the end. This has been kind of a challenge because you can't take a lot off. I've got a follow rest, but the follow rest would not allow me to get back here to the start. And I've been taking about 2 to 3 thousandths, because if you put too much pressure on it, you end up pushing the bar away here in the middle because it's so long, and you take less off. So I found that between 2 and 3 thousandths, I'm consistent all the way up. So hopefully everything will pan out here. I've just, like I said, got a couple cuts left, and then we'll be able to start the threading. And then, like I said, I'll cut the piece for the back, or for the end, and we'll weld that on instead of wasting so much material. So that, and I've got to drill holes for a cotter pin. That should do it. Okay, it's $668.5. 668.5. Oh, get out of there. 668. Okay, so it's off a little bit. So that bearing should go on there now. So let's pop it out and check. Nice fit. All right. So the next thing we'll do is I'll take the dog off, and we'll get probably get a collet on there, and we'll put some threads on the end here. Okay, we've got I won't be using all this. I'll cut some of this off, but I'm going to go ahead and thread up to the line. That's 16 millimeter 150 is the thread. So we've got to get it down to 16 millimeter. So that's our next goal. I'm going to put a little relief here right at the end of my thread. Okay, that should give us a pattern, I think. I think I've got everything where I need it. I've got to put my machine and threading there. My machine, again, when I do metric threads, I've got to keep my half nut engaged. So it's kind of a slow go. All right, let's see what we got. Well, keep hitting the camera. Okay, that looks good. I gotta put my feet in. Let's see what our progress is here. Okay, just starting to go on. So we got quite a ways yet to go. Okay, I think we're just about done here. Okay. That feels good. If we go all the way up, we're done. All right. We're good. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. I think we're just about done. We've got to make the piece that goes on here. Let me find that other axle. Okay, this is the Yamaha one. It's got the 16 millimeter nut, and it's 0.668 all the way to the end. This is the RM Suzuki one. We want the length of it, but not the size. See, it's 16 here, but for some reason they reduced it here. So our length is good. Like I said, we'll be cutting off the threads just a little bit. I just wanted to make sure I had enough, and this will make this end for the new one just like this, and then just weld it on and go ahead and drill it. So it's quite a bit wider, but I think we just about got her made. All right. Okay, this, like I say, this is, I believe, the length and everything that we need. I'll have to look again here. So we'll be, let's see, are we all in the screen here? Yeah. Okay, so if I line this up with the edge of right here, then I'll be able to cut this. I wanted it a little bit longer, that's why I made it longer, just to give me a little more stick out. This just didn't give me much. I don't know whether it's the application or maybe this is just not the right one. But the Suzuki evidently had a larger bearing on this end than it had on this end. And that's why we had to go to the 0.670 or whatever for our axle diameter. I've got a axle over there for a IT 175, and it's too short, but it's the same length or the same diameter all the way across, so it fits perfect. But this one, this here is going to be our piece that makes it this diameter here on this end, and I'm pretty lucky because it'll press in there, and then I'll weld it on the outside here, and everything should be good there. And then we'll just cut this off. But before we do any of that, I'm going to take it over and we're going to trial fit it in the bike. Then we'll go over and cut this off. We'll cut it a little long so we can trim it after I weld. So I think that's it. Once we get it all welded in, then we'll drill this hole here, and once we get it trimmed off here, we'll go ahead and put our cotter pin holes in for the castellated nut. So let's go over to the bike. Okay, see if I can do this without disturbing anything. You see how this one is the same diameter all the way, but it's just too short. Doesn't stick out far enough to get a nut on it. Okay, so we're all the way in there. So you can see here now I've got some, I'm going to cut that right about there probably. And that should give us a good amount to get a bolt onto. This one just wouldn't do it. Okay, you can see also too that I've got the chain on here. I'm kind of trying to get the fit, and you can see that it's hitting the swing arm pivot there a little bit. There's a couple things that I'm going to do, probably just like I did on the 125 MX when I increased the swing arm length on it. Put a roller right here, made out of Delrin. If you know, I could possibly use a slider too. I don't think Suzuki used it on this one. They actually had one that probably went around the swing arm, and I may look at trying to do something like that too. But right now we're concentrating on the bolt, and of course there's going to be chain guides, guards, all this stuff that's going to have to go in here. And if you remember on the 125, let me get light here. We increased the length of the swing arm 1.5 inches here, and I added a roller right here made of Delrin. And Suzuki actually did this on the RM400N, or at least the bike I had did, just to get it over the swing arm pivot and to keep it off of there. So that is probably kind of the same thing I'm going to incorporate, and also a spring-loaded chain tensioner. You remember on these bikes, all they had was this right here. So that's not enough when you have that much slack in the chain. So you've got to have a tensioner. So we'll be doing all that to the Yamaha 250 MX with the Suzuki parts. I think now we're calling a Yamazuki. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get the axle cut off. Sure hope it's right. I'm starting to understand why they cost $100 or more. I've got pretty much a full day in this one by the time I get done with it. And while we're sawing, we'll go ahead and cut the outer portion of the axle there that we're going to weld on. That measures real close. It should go right on, but just tap it on with a plastic hammer, I hope. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trim up the cut here, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to put the turning dimple back into it that I had to use to turn the axle down. It just gives it that just a little bit better of an appearance. It looks more factory that way, so it's just an appearance thing. Hopefully we're done with all the turning on it. Yeah, all this is just an appearance thing. Okay, so there's our hole, and the nut just goes right back on it. So we should be good there. So let's go see what we can do about this end. Just face off the edge that goes toward the axle. We can face off the other side when it's welded on. So that'll give it a good flat surface. Okay, this is the side I faced off, so that's going to go this way. And I'm just going to, I think it's close enough that it should drive on with a plastic hammer. Now I may have to get a little bit, it started. I don't want to, even on the, with the plastic, I don't want to beat on that too much. It's just about on there though. Okay. Okay, it's just a little bit to go. I think I put the nut on it, and I've got the nut beyond it. I'm gonna try to hit it with the brass hammer a little. Everything's still working good there. Okay, that looks good. And we're okay here. Just want to be careful doing stuff like that, especially after I just spent so long cutting all this down. So our next thing is to weld this, and then we can put it back in the lathe and trim it down. Before we do that, we'll probably go ahead and drill the hole and drill the 2 holes on the other end. And we'll just find the center here. Okay, right there should be the center. Looks about right to me. Okay, I've got the axle in the block here so I can turn it over and get it at exactly 90 degrees from it for the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and find the center just like I did before, and then we'll drill those holes. Okay, should be about it. And I've added a little to that, so I think I'm going to call that good right there for my hole. I think that's sounding a little dull. Let me change that out. Much better. Going through my turn hole here a little bit. There we go. I don't know whether that thing is a hindrance to the filming or not. It seems like it is. Let me get this one back here. Seems to be a better way to go, maybe. Okay, I'm gonna pull that out and put just a little bit more of a dimple around it. I thought I had enough in there, but looks like I need a little more. Okay. Now I'm going to flip that over, and I should be able to dimple the other side. I've got to stop back here. Yeah, just trying to do it the wrong way, I guess. Okay, go back to my stop. And now we'll dimple this side. Okay. And now we'll pull that out again and do 90 degrees up against the stop. And I should still be centered there, so we should be able to drill our hole. Those little tips can break off pretty easy, so just take it easy. see if we can get through to the other side here. I don't have a castellated nut for this right now, but I've got one on order. At least they have those at a reasonable price. Okay, let me give that a little bit more of a dimple. Good. And one more time out. All the way over. Back up against the stop. And we'll dimple this side. So there we go. Let me get it out of there. Okay, here's the comparison for the two. And here's the holes that we just put in for the cotter pin. And the hole up here. When I get this turned down, then I'll go ahead and taper these just like we did these. So let's go weld it on. Okay, I'm going to do a little, I think they call it tray panning or something like that, to try to get me a weld groove here. Something just to get a little more weld into it. That should do it. That'll just give us a way to get the weld a little deeper into there. Okay, I got this cleaned up with some acetone and got it dry, so we'll go ahead and see if we can get a bead in it. Just truing up the inside here. Yeah, it was off slightly. Okay. You know, if I was using a Suzuki wheel, I told you at first I thought that they were the same wheel bearings. But what I had is the axle I've got in here is for actually a PE. I think it's a 175. It is, you know, but the RM, this is supposedly out of an RM, but that's going to have the 14 millimeter ID races. This is 16. So the Yamaha is 16. So I stayed with that theme. Actually had to, this item here that goes in here that's right here on the inside of the adjuster, and it comes out this side and then has the big nut on it. I actually took that and put it in the lathe and took it from 14 millimeter to 16. So that's the only modification I had to make there. This side is 16, if you can look at this piece right here on the RM axle, so it's bigger. So that's all I did to make that fit. And as you see here, this is the PE. It's got the little handle on it there. It would have worked just fine, but it was just too darn short. So I could get maybe one thread of the nut on it. That was it. So hate to drag you through this whole thing for an axle, but I had to have an axle in order to mock this thing up. Without it, you're just never going to be right on any of your measurements. So now we've got it. Hopefully it'll go in here for me. And it looks like all the stock Yamaha, like this, where the seal goes, or this goes into the seal, that spacer on this side, the spacer on this side, and as of right now I had to leave this piece off that goes on right here. So everything lines up. It's pretty well centered here, and the chain appears to be in alignment. Like I said earlier, we've got some issues here to overcome, but this is nothing that Suzuki didn't have to overcome. And I also showed you that on the 125 MX that I did the swing arm extension on. I had to do it there too. Anytime you get extra travel and have to run a loose chain, you've got issues that are completely different. But the manufacturers overcame it, and I will here too. And I will either make the chain tensioners or whatever. I'll go through my stash and see if I can find something that might work. The 125 MX, I actually had a parts bike that right here, this came off of a later model. I think it was a 78 Yamaha 175 Enduro. And of course the Delrin ball or roller, I made that from Delrin and just made a couple brackets and put on there. That's how Suzuki did it on the RM 400N, the 79 model. So it's just, you've got to adapt some parts. If it doesn't quite work, then you've got to re-engineer things a little bit and go for it. But so far so good on this bike, and I don't see why it wouldn't be okay here. The only thing I may have to do is kind of weld on a little appurtenant here, I guess, to mount my roller on, because it's a little thin with the swing arm tapering in like that. And that's really because it's too narrow for this bike, and we had to make this basically a 1/2 inch extension here on the inside. But it's nothing that you can't overcome. But I'm happy with the axle. I've got a new castellated nut on order, so that should be in pretty quick. And that, I'm not going to need it for a while anyway, but I had this one. Actually, I got that one from the hardware store. Just something so I could bolt it up. But it looks pretty factory, really. You got the hole so you can put the screwdriver in it so you can tighten it up. And, this project had some things I had to overcome, but I was able to do it. And it's just like anything. When you've got a project going in the shop, you're going to run into issues or things that just don't go right, and you just think about it and try to work around it. Same deal here. Okay guys, there you have it. I'm sorry for nothing but machine content, but a lot of you like that. And like I said before, this is your day because that's mostly what we've got here. But I had to have the axle. Things just wouldn't, you couldn't guarantee your measurements or anything without getting the axle done first. So we've got it done, and we should be able to kind of move on now and figure out things as we go along, and hopefully the other the measurements we do need to make will be precise enough for the project we're doing. One thing I want to do is everybody in the US, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I'm filming this the day before. My family's actually doing it on Wednesday because we have other obligations on Thursday. But I just wanted to wish everybody a really nice Turkey Day. And everybody abroad also, although I realize it's not Thanksgiving for most of you. Anyhow, I appreciate you standing with me with this thing. It's like I say, it's a project in motion. We're changing things as we go along. It's just stuff that, I'm not an engineer. And I've watched a lot of stuff like this. I've done some things like this, maybe not quite as complicated, but still, I've been subjected to some of this kind of stuff before. But a lot of it was very early on, while we were, when I was a teenager working at a motorcycle shop, and more than anything, watching the older guys do this kind of stuff and wishing I could be right in the middle of it too. But pretty much all I could do is stand back, put motorcycles together, and sweep the floor. Later on, I got into a lot more of the maintenance and that sort of stuff, but that's a story for another day. Anyhow, hey, thanks for going along on the ride, and we'll see you next video.